Maps have been a part of virtually every exhibition that this museum has ever done. We want to orient you. We are a museum about place. We are a museum about connecting people to place. And how better to do that than with a map? And as we explore maps, you will see, of course, that the earliest attempts to map the Chesapeake in terms of accuracy left a lot to be desired. It took a while for us to come up with what we take for granted today when we venture out onto the waters, and that is accurate mapping and charting of the Chesapeake Bay. And you will see some of that progression through here. We have 4 sections of this exhibit. We start off with Seeking Safe Passage down here on the first floor of the exhibition. And this is that story of how do we help the mariner navigate their way safely, pilot their way safely around the bay with better and better charting of, as it turns out, this changing landscape of the Chesapeake Bay. As you go to the second floor, we explore those changes in the shifting shorelines, the changing shorelines of the bay, and how we're tracking that not only over time, over the past several centuries, from the time that we got our first accurate shoreline surveys to the present day, but also projecting into the future with the map from published in 2010 by National Geographic. The span of these maps in this exhibit go from 1590, the very earliest map to name the Chesapeake as the Chesapeake. You won't recognize the shape when you look at it of the Chesapeake, and you won't even recognize the spelling, but they put the name, the Chesapeake, on it. And that actually was quite, the power of the publishers of maps was they had the privilege of placing names. And many of those names from those very earliest maps, from John Smith's charts of mapping of the Chesapeake Bay, stick to this very day. We talk about marketing the bay, and in fact, John Smith, in his 1608 exploration of the bay, produced a map published in 1612. And why would he produce a map of the bay? Well, he was looking to lure settlers. He was selling this place. He was the earliest real estate agent for the Chesapeake Bay, bringing people and bringing investors in for the Virginia Company to the bay. And finally, as you get up into the far corners of the second floor, the idea of building business, maps that furthered business interests, whether those business interests were railroads or steamboats, transportation companies, of course, relate easily to maps, but also how maps enabled the exploitation of the natural resources for the oystermen and fishermen of the Chesapeake. We see maps taking on all of these roles, and in different periods, these maps tell us about what we were interested in finding on the Chesapeake Bay. Looping back to the care that we give, the care that we give to these rare maps, you will notice that this exhibition is not as brilliantly lit as our last one or even our last several. In fact, I think I removed 38 cans of lights, and I changed bulbs in all the remaining ones to lower the light levels. Why would I do that and make it so hard for you to read my labels? The answer is these objects are subject to fading. And part of our care of them is not only to put them into a good environment, to put them in acid-free materials, to keep them from being handled too roughly or anything like that, but also to keep the light levels down so that they're not subject to fading. So, if you will, think of it more as a reverent, maybe even a temple-like treatment of these very special artifacts. And please enjoy your exploration of these as we encourage you to explore the bay through the mapping of the Chesapeake.